Hello everybody, like I said in my last video, I'm going to start the chapter 1 of strategic management for IPCC for chartered accountancy course. The first chapter in your book is chapter 1 business environment. As you can see on the screen, I've tried my best to incorporate both your study material as well as practice manual. So once you cover these sections, you would have covered both the study material as well as practice manual. But then I insist you guys to do a reading of both. Consider this session as a as a revision lecture or a revision session only. Okay. Firstly, this chapter talks about what a business is, how it can be defined, what are the different objectives of business, and what are the attributes, what are the attributes relating to a business, and different types of business environment, and so on. Okay, so this is very common to a management subject, and ICIA has included this subject or this chapter so that you get used to all the business terminologies and the management terminology as they use in business. This is only a revision session. Okay, so let's start with it. The first portion is, what is a business? Now, this is a question. This is also a question in PMs. Therefore, I have put a small marking which says PM in red to the right side of your screen. So which says this is also present in the practice manual. Okay. Business means, in dictionary terms, business. If you look into a dictionary, it will tell you a business means the state of being busy. So that's what the first point says. Etymologically, it means state of being busy for an individual or a group or a society or an organization. So it means just it can be your occupation or it can be a profession. If something makes you in a state of busy state, then that means that can be called upon as a business. And it could also mean a company, a corporation, or a particular entity. You know why? Because they say garment business. Actually, what they mean by garment business is a garment shop. So in that sense, it could also mean an entity or a company or a corporation. So what you get marks for is that the actual definition as per ICIA material. Actual definition as per ICIA material is that an activity consisting. So what is a business? A business is an activity consisting of purchase, sale, manufacture, production, and marketing of products and services. Actually, this is the supply chain, right? It consists of purchase, it consists of manufacture, it consists of sale, it consists of marketing and sales. Okay, that's all. So the definition is an activity consisting of purchase, manufacture, sale, marketing of products. So you have to write all the 4 points. If they ask you for a 2 marks, probably you could write just 2 points. But definition is very important. You have to write definition and any one of those 3 points. But if they ask you for 4 marks, probably you'll have to write all the 4 points. All right? Right. So we all know who Peter Drucker is. Peter Drucker is a famous management consultant. He has authored. In fact, he's a management guru. He has authored many books, and in one of his books, he has drawn 2 important conclusions regarding business. And this particular portion may come as a 2-mark question, or it may come as a 4-mark. It doesn't come as a 4-mark question. It comes as a 2-mark question, or it may come as a multiple choice question. So, what are the 2 important conclusions drawn by Peter Drucker? Or they'll give you choices. So this is one of the important questions. It's also a PM question. So the 2 important conclusions are: business is created and managed by people. So it is true, right? People meaning managers or the strategists or the directors. They create business and they manage it. So the first conclusion is that people create business and people manage it. Okay, and it is their decision which will decide whether the business will become a successful business or it will fade away. Okay, or that is, it will become a failure. So the first conclusion, like I said, it is people who manage and create and manage business. The second conclusion is that business cannot be explained in terms of profit. So like I said, profit is just a financial figure. That is what is your what income minus expense, or income minus expense, that is your profit, right? So business is much beyond that. That is what Peter Drucker is saying. Business cannot be explained in terms of profit alone, but it also includes other non-financial parameters like goodwill, like your corporate social responsibilities, your corporate citizenship, and your relationship with your stakeholders, etc. So this is very important question. Please go through it properly. Okay. Next we come to objectives of business. What are the objectives of business? They are profitability, growth, efficiency, survival, and stability. Okay. So how will you remember this? If you look at the screen, you can see a small bulb which indicates a mnemonic. So the mnemonic is progress. Okay, PROGRESS. So PRO stands for profitability, GR stands for growth, E stands for efficiency, S stands for survival, and S stands for stability. How will you relate this? You have to relate, why do we run a business? We run a business for progressing, right? So you have to relate it like that. Only then you can remember. Or if you have any other mnemonic or any other technique, you can use that as well. Okay, so what is profitability? Profitability is a measure of how good your business is performing. So it is usually, they say it's a yardstick for business, measuring business performance. And it is often considered, you should have done your accounting, or you should have learned it in your accounting, where they say profit is considered as a reward for the owners who take the risk. It's a reward for the risk taken by the owners. So you have to put these 3 points. If you look into my slide, you can see there are, under the main headings, I've put 3 points each. So at least you are required to write 3 points each if such a question comes. This is a question in practice manual. This has come many times in many exams. So this is very important question. Please note that. The second objective is growth. Okay. So they say growth is a promising and popular objective. What do you mean by promising and popular objective? It is popular because everybody wants growth, right? Every business or every individual requires growth, and hence it is popular. Why it is promising? Because only growth will lead you to more and more profits. Okay, and growth can be in terms of increase in assets or increase in sales revenue, sales volume. Or some people say, I want to grow next year. I want to have so many number of employees. I want to increase my employee count to so and so number. Some people may say, some owners may say, I want to grow, or I want to branch out into different areas. All these can be considered as a growth objective, right? So the last point, if you see, it says growth may take the enterprise through unknown and risky paths full of promises and pitfalls. Why did I put this? Is to make up the 3 points. Okay, so the third point is not very important, but it says growth will just take you through many paths which are very risky and which is risky, which has pitfalls and promises. So if you can remember the third point, put it in, otherwise you can skip it. Okay. The third objective was efficiency. Efficiency means everyone who's done operations management, or if you have done financial management, you should have come across efficiency. Efficiency is usually explained in terms of input and output, right? So you say efficiency is an operational goal. Okay, it means to do the things right. Remember, I think it is there in your ethics subject as well. So efficiency means to do things right? And it is also an operational goal. So doing things right, it is often considered as an operational goal, right? So efficiency is usually measured in terms of input and output. It is a ratio. You should have seen that in your financial management as well. So it is actually efficiency is about achieving a goal, achieving a predetermined goal, which you set earlier, with minimum resources, and at the cheapest or with least amount of cost. So remember the third point well, okay? The third point is important because you can apply it in different subjects.
So the next objective is survival. So as you know, survival is the most basic objective. Why? Because when an organization starts, or when an organization is newly set up, the main objective of that organization during the initial days will be to survive, right? Among various competitions and various competitors in the industry, the main objective will be to survive for a few months, and after those few months it will be able to make profits, or cut down cost and all those things. So the initial stages, the most important objective will be to survive. So what is survival? Survival is the will and anxiety to perpetuate into the future as long as possible. I mean, what does that mean? I think it is somewhat related to your going concern concept in accounting. So which says every organization or every firm is expected or assumed to be assumed to go to continue into the future as long as possible. It's the same thing. Survival is the will and anxiety to perpetuate into the future as long as possible. Okay, then you can write the second point as it is basic and implicit objective for most organization, which I explained just before. And it gains prominence during the initial stages. Like I said, during the initial stages, this is the most important objective. Okay, and also during economic adversity. Economic adversity means during days of inflation, or during days of depression, during days of recession and such where such economic problems exist. So during the initial stages, during economic adversity, it gains prominence. During it is the most basic objective, and then it is the will and anxiety to perpetuate into the future as long as possible. So that was your survival objective. So the next objective is stability. Stability means it's a cautious and conservative objective. Why? Because everybody if you're cautious, you will say, I don't want much risk, I don't want much reward. Only when there is a risk, there is a reward, right? So I don't want to take much risk, I don't want to take much reward also. I'll go in a conservative manner. So which means you are in a stable position. Okay, so this is the least expensive strategy, or least expensive objective. Why? Because if you are in a conservative stage, or if you are in a cautious manner, if you approach the business in a cautious manner, then you wouldn't have to put in much investments. You'll be happy with what you're having, or you'll be looking at a stable environment or a stable profit. Okay, so it is also less risky in terms of managerial time. It also requires very less management time and talent and resources, again because of the same reason which I said before. Okay, and a stable and steady enterprise minimizes managerial tensions and demands. Obviously, when business is going stable, you are reaping just enough rewards, and managers are not tensed because they are anyway reaping rewards, or anyway getting little profits, and they do not have to be dynamic as to make new strategies, to bring in new sales, to bring in more sales volume, and thus increase profit. So in that sense, stability is the cautious and conservative objective. Those are the 3 points which I have put on the slide, which you will have to write. So like I said before, this is an important question. It has come many times. It has come as a multiple choice question. It has come as a long question as well. There are many questions in the PM, in the practice manual, which relates to this particular portion of your chapter. Okay. There is a small portion in your textbook which actually talks about the environmental influence on business. There is also a question in practice manual which says a relationship between business and its environment. So this is kind of related, but then these are 2 different questions. So if you are asked the environmental influence on business, you will have to write what is on the slide. Okay, and if you are asked the relationship between business and its environment, then you will have to write a different answer, which I'll give you later. Okay, so let's look into an environmental influence on business. As you know, business works in an environment. Every business works in a business environment. The environment may consist of different competitors, different legal policies, government, laws, regulations, different types of customers, different types of suppliers. All these make the business environment. Okay, so later you will study what the business environment is. There's a macro, there's a micro environment, there's a macro environment, and all those. So at the moment, for this question, or at the moment, you just understand, we have to understand that business works in a business environment. Okay, so the first point says business do not function in an isolated vacuum. Okay, that means business works in a business environment. Business function within a relevant environment which is complex and uncertain. And you again will come to the properties or the characteristics of business environment in the next slide. So as for now, just you have to understand business environment is really complex and uncertain. So to be successful, they have to work their way through it. That's the first point, right? And then business which continuously remains passive to the changes in the environment will gradually fade away into oblivion. That means see, suppose government policies changes, okay, so or say a law changes, and then if it affects your business, you will have to change the modes or the way in which you do your business. So that's what it says. If your business is remaining passive or non-responsive to the changes in the environment, then it is destined to doom, or it is destined to fade away into the oblivion. Okay, that is the second point. In order to be successful, businesses have to recognize changes in the environment. Yeah, that is true, right? That's what the second point is also talking about. To be successful, you have to analyze your business environment, and you have to look for changes. And sometimes changes will give you opportunities, and sometimes changes will give you threats. So successful business are those which analyze or which scans the environment for changes, and to look out for those opportunities and to exploit them with your strength. Okay, and ward away and to overcome the threats which is coming from the environment using your internal strengths of the organization. That's what the fourth point is talking about. And businesses functions as a part of the broader environment. And it takes inputs in the form of raw materials, human resources, and other physical materials, and all those things, and it converts them into final products using some processes, manufacturing process or production process. Gets it converted into the final product or output, and then it is passed on to the customer, which is passing it back to the society for a profit, of course. So this is what these 5 points are, what you will have to write if they ask for environmental influence on business. As soon as you hear relationship between business and environment, you will have to write a different answer, which I'll give you in a moment. We come to the next important question, or the next important section in the chapter, that is problems in understanding environmental influences. Okay, so in fact, I've even noted down a question from the practice manual on the slide. So it says it is difficult for managers to understand or make sense out of influences in the environment, and why is that? So that is the question. So how will you answer this question? So we know environment, or the business works in an environment which is very complex and uncertain, and it has the business being in such an environment consisting of several factors. It might be micro environmental factors, or it might be macro environmental factors. Factors, for example, it could be customers, it could be legal institutions, authority, government institutions, laws and regulations, and all those things. They are all examples of your factors in the business environment. So they interact with each other constantly. They form new influences, new results, and as a result of which, it is very difficult for managers to make sense out of these environmental influences. It is mainly because of two things. One is due to the human limitations That is, as a manager, you have human limitations in understanding anything. Okay, so it is mainly because of human limitations and the three factors which you see on the slide, that is diversity, uncertainty, and complexity. There is of course a mnemonic to understand, to remember these 3 points. That is CUNDI. It is a funny little word which will help you to, of course, remember the 3 points. The first point is diversity. So what do you mean by diversity is, like I said before, the environment consists of many different, that is diverse factors. So and these factors are not stagnant, they are always dynamic in nature. The environment itself is dynamic in nature due to this dynamic forces within the environment. And for a manager, if these forces are very dynamic, they are changing every time, then it is very difficult to understand or even to predict what the next outcome will be. Okay, so it may be, like the slide says, it may be easier to understand the environment in parts or environment in smaller chunks, but it is very difficult to understand the environment as a whole, as a total, due to the diversity factor. Okay, and the second point is uncertainty. And as you know, because of the pace of the science and technology developments and the pace of communications, now you have satellite communication, mobile communication, and whatnot. So due to the changes, due to the rapid changes of all these factors like communication, technology, and science, the changes are very rapid, and therefore it becomes very difficult to envisage changes, to predict changes about what will happen in the future or what will happen to other organizations or to your organizations. Next is complexity. Complexity means the managers when they make decisions, or when they study something or they make decisions, they try to relate it to their experiences, or they try to relate it with the history which they have faced, or according to certain documents which are historical documents. So they base their decisions on such documents or such experiences. Due to that, sometimes managers fail to picture the environment in a complete sense. So what is important is not to oversimplify, or not to, sometimes they don't study the environment properly. They take one or two influences only and they try to make a decision. So in that case, they should avoid oversimplification, and they should try to eliminate oversimplification, and they should really study the environment, study the problems, and study the opportunities and threats that they should try to. Okay, they should try to study the problems in the environment, and then eliminate oversimplification to take correct decisions and to understand the environment better. Yeah. So those were the 3 points plus one. You have to write. Those were the 3 points, and 1 point plus 1 point, that is due to human limitations. So those are the 4 points you have to write for this question. How will you remember it? You'll remember with the mnemonic Kundi. Okay, I know it's funny, but then that will obviously make you remember it. Yeah. Yep.
So then that takes us to the next topic: 3 goals of environmental analysis. It is very self-explanatory. There are 3 goals. There is a question, and I think it's in practice manual, which says, why do we do environmental analysis? So first, then you have to understand what environmental analysis is. I think it comes in the 3rd chapter or the 2nd chapter or something. Environmental analysis is nothing but monitoring and scanning the environment for different changes and different influences, and analyzing them with respect to threats, opportunities, product situations, competition, etc. That is what an environmental analysis is in short. So again, the 3 goals of environmental analysis is that first one is to provide an understanding about the current and potential changes in the environment. And the second one is to provide inputs for strategic decision making. And the third one is to facilitate strategic thinking in the organization by providing rich ideas. So it's very self-explanatory, which is now what are the 3 goals? What does environmental analysis help you with? Or why do we do environmental analysis? First one, to provide an understanding of the current and potential changes in the environment, to give inputs to managers and inputs to the management for decision making, and to give and to help in strategic thinking by giving rich ideas. These are the 3 points. That takes us to one of the most important topics in the chapter, characteristics of business environment. Actually, in your study material, I don't know why they've given it in the middle of the chapter, or I think they should have given it in the first part of the chapter, so that it might have been much more easier to explain. Anyway, you should not get confused with the earlier question. The earlier question said what are the problems in understanding environmental influences, which you had CUNDI, complexity, diversity, and uncertainty, right? But here you have here you have complex, dynamic, multifaceted, and far-reaching impact. Again, we have a mnemonic for that. That is CDM is far. What do you mean by CDM? CDM machine, right? CDM is far. So C stands for complex, D for dynamic, M for multifaceted, and F or far is for far-reaching impact. Okay. As we all know, business environment is complex. Why do you call it as complex? It is complex because of various factors which we have explained earlier. We say environment is complex because of various factors, various events, various influences that arise or results that arise of interaction between these forces. Okay, so again, we learned that these forces are not in isolation, they interact with each other constantly, and because of this they form new results, new influences, and hence it is very difficult for managers to grasp or understand the environment in full. Yeah. Then the next point is dynamic. Why do you call it as dynamic? Why do you call it as dynamic? It is because the environment, as you said in the first point, it is never in a state of static. It is always dynamic. Something or the other is happening in the environment due to factors such as science and technology, communication, laws and regulations changing, government changing, all those. So it is dynamic in nature, and hence every change in the environment brings or creates a potential opportunity or a threat. Okay. The next point is multifaceted. Multifaceted means it says, see, for certain organizations, a change in the environment may be seen as a potential threat, whereas certain other organizations may treat it as an opportunity, as a welcome opportunity. So again, that's what it has multi phases. One organization thinks about the change as a potential threat, whereas other organization might think the change as a welcome opportunity. The next one is point is far-reaching impact. Far-reaching impact means the changes in the business environment does not only have an immediate impact on the organization, but also has a far-reaching impact on its profitability, growth, survival, and stability. Okay, so those are the 4 points which are the characteristics of the environment. This is very important. It has been asked many times in the examination, and it is also a practice manual question. Okay, so with that, I conclude part 1 of chapter 1, business environment. And do subscribe to this channel, okay, so that it gives me motivation to make more videos like this. Yeah, thank you.